Hey everybody, welcome back to Phoenix Wright versus Professor Layton. We're watching this guy chug down, and he was summoned as a witness in the murder of the alchemist. We have the butler that was revealed to be more of a maid since it's actually a girl and not a boy like everyone thought. Which, I mean, who cares? So, anyway, now we're investigating what happened to the alchemist, so the butler is testifying, and they said a neighbor helped bust down the door, and this was the neighbor. So, now that he's here, we'll have his statement. So I have to present something here. Dawned on me then, the witch cast Familia, just like in this case.
Objection!
There's something here you don't seem to understand, Mr. Amir. The Familia gem in this witch's scepter is a fake. The gem is useless. Just like this buffoon's testimony. Huh? Therefore, your testimony doesn't hold water. Just like anything else, he says. What? Ignored and scorned without credibility, will majestic Amir now show humility? What? A fake? Should have listened to the trial more carefully. Now that has been dealt with, Inquisitor Barnum. This witch's scepter was not discovered at the crime scene when Sir Belduke was murdered. Is that correct? Indeed. We deduce the Familia must have been used, however.
Objection!
But that Familia magic gem was a fake. That much has been demonstrated today. What's more, as we've learned from Cracker the Parrot's testimony, the witch used the spell Godor. The fact that there's a green wall at the crime scene corroborates that.
Objection!
That wall may not have been painted green 3 months ago. And besides, no one could have passed through a portal so small. To be honest, I've started wondering, were Sir Layton and Sir Belduke's murders actually committed by the same witch?
Objection!
Your Honor, I'd like to remind you that was the Inquisition's claim. He's right, though. It's got to be the same culprit in both cases. And at the very least, it's possible that the witch used the spell Goldor to commit Sir Belduke's murder. What? In that case, I will ask the defense to show us proof. What proof do you have that the witch could have used Godor to kill Sir Belduke?
Take that!
I'd like you to take a look at these. Aren't those the Court Illustrator sketches? As you can see from this sketch, the victim was seated at his desk when he was murdered. And what can you see right behind the victim? A small landscape painting. Thank you, Inquisitor. But there's one more point of note. Look closely at the painting. Do you notice anything behind it? Oh, I see it. The wall behind it has already been painted green. Which means the witch could have used the portal spell there 3 months ago.
Objection!
1 moment, my lord. Consider how small that portal would have been. Could a witch have passed through it? I think not.
Objection!
Of course, the witch would not be able to go right through it. However, if you look at the distance between the portal and the victim, you'll notice that the victim, Sir Belduke, was sitting just at arm's length from where the portal would have been. The witch did not have to enter the room at all. All she had to do was reach through with her arms in order to strangle Sir Belduke, who was sitting right under the painting. Order! Inquisitor Barnum, what say you to that? A fascinating theory, Sir Blue Knight. but there is a notable contradiction within it. Where would that be? Tell me, why do you think we concluded that Familia had been used? We had a certain reason for it, of course. And what reason was that exactly? The crime scene had been tampered with. How so? Imagine the circumstances of Sir Belduke's death, and it should become obvious, even to you. The victim was choked to death. And yet there were no signs of a struggle. Highly improbable, don't you think? What are you getting at? Think about it. Can you imagine anyone just sitting back and letting themselves be strangled? Clearly there should be evidence of a struggle. And since we haven't found any, that must mean the killer erased all traces of a fight from the crime scene. Indeed, that would be the logical conclusion. Now, surely it would be impossible to do any such thing, had the witch only reached inside through a portal. In order to cover up the evidence she left behind, the witch had to have used a familiar. Without doing so, there would have been no point in her using the spell Godor.
Objection!
Miss Greer could have done it. She might have been able to tamper with the crime scene. What are you talking about? The morning of the crime. From the time Miss Greer and that guy entered the study, until the arrival of the Knights of the Inquisition, there was a window of time in which she had the opportunity to do so. We need to look into what happened in that window. Seems we may be in need of another testimony. Witnesses testify about what happened in the time between the body being found and the Knights of the Inquisition arriving. Sure thing. Ask me anything. I'll tell you anything you need to know. Oh, glorious Amir, tell us more. Maybe you won't be laughed at as before. Only 2 people accessed the crime scene in that time. Grey Earl and Amir. Believe it or not, Amir is the key witness in this case. Yeah, we're all screwed. Our key witness is a drunk. I broke down the door and saw the alchemist, slumped in his chair, gave me a jolt. The butler hurried to call the Knights of the Inquisition. He never entered the study. What did I do then? I was asked to keep an eye on things, so I went in to have a better look at everything. And that made me pretty drowsy, so I went for a little nap on the couch. Wait, what? Mr. Amir, you said the butler didn't enter the crime scene? Yep, he never set foot in there. The moment he saw Belduke, he told me to stand guard till the Knights of the Inquisition arrived. And then off he went. What a resourceful apprentice that alchemist has, he thought to himself. I almost feel sorry for you, Mr. Blue Knight. After all, your suspect couldn't have tampered with the crime scene. That can't be true. Defense, please proceed with the interrogation. Yes, Your Honor.
Hold it!
What were you having a look at? Oh, well, I was asked to take care of the crime scene, wasn't I? So I had to, make sure everything was in order. I mean, you know. It's not like I went wild with excitement after being left in a real alchemist's room full of mysterious stuff. I'm sure you didn't, Mr. Sticky Fingers. And besides, she asked me to look for something, so I was doing that too.
Hang on!
Miss Grey Earl, you look lost in thought. Oh, were you talking to me? Even she can be caught off guard if I choose the right moment. You have been listening to Mr. Amir's testimony, haven't you? Yes, I have. He was asked to look for something. It was you who asked him, I assume. What did you tell him to look for? I think you're mistaken. I don't remember making any request of that sort. Huh?
Oi, Bluey! Were you even listening to what I said? It was a lady that asked me. The butler's a guy, you numbskull.
He's clearly been paying attention. So who's this mysterious witness?
Hey, what's up? Why's everyone looking at me like that?
Quite a while ago, we learned that the butler, Jean Greyrl, is actually a female.
What?
That's why when you said a lady asked you to search for something, we assumed it was Miss Greyrl.
What?
Daydreaming, listening, but not hearing. That look of shock is almost endearing.
What? Why didn't anyone tell me before? Do you require a personal notification? You should have been listening to the trial. Knights of the court squabbling with a witness is most unseemly. But what I would like to know is this. Who was the lady that made the request of Ymir? Yeah, it was actually Miss...
I think, he's absolutely certainly talking about me.
Oh, and you are?
Oh, I'm Letty. Hang on a minute. I'll get down there post-haste.
Post, get it?
But, Miss Letty, who are you precisely?
Me? Who am I? I'm Letty Mailer. I'm the courier.
A courier? A courier is a person who collects and delivers letters or packages. I know. Thanks anyway, Espella. Wish you'd stop misreading my mind.
Hold on, Miss Mailer. Do you mean it was you who responsibly made such a request to that troublemaker?
Irresponsibly. Me? Maybe. Yes, I guess so. I asked him to help me find something.
Outrageous! Why was I not informed of this?
Guess no one told you. Maybe because you didn't ask?
Urgh.
Seems we will need to ask you to testify, Miss Mailer. Explain to us how you were involved in this case. Frankly, I wouldn't say I was involved in anything. Now I'm in a tight spot. That's because that guy said something weird about me.
Ha ha ha! Ease up on me, lady. Like the saying goes. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Beats being in a pickle on your own, eh?
Now then, Miss Letty Mailer, testify about that day. That voice can make windows shatter. Sir Belduke said he'd have a letter to send, so I came by to pick it up. So now we know there's a third witness. But Miss Mailer only came to pick up a letter. That doesn't help as much, does it? Well, perhaps it's more than meets the eye. A letter, huh? Belduke was about to send a letter before someone was killed. May not be relevant to the case, but something else about it is bothering me. Maybe it's worth asking Letty about it. Crap. Went too far.
Objection!
The letter you found that morning. Was it by any chance this one here? Ah! Yes, that's the one. But wait, how did you get it? You're a piece of work, all right?
Objection!
Hold it, Sir Blue Knight. How did you come by that letter?
It just sort of fell into my lap, so to speak. It was the professor who found it, but he doesn't need to know that.
Defender, just what in the world are the contents of that letter?
Well, the letter's blank.
What? All this fuss over a blank letter?
As you can see, there are some sheets of parchment inside the envelope.
Indeed. There's not a trace of ink on them. What is the meaning of this?
Don't forget that Sir Belduke was an alchemist. He may have used some kind of invisible ink to write that letter.
Indeed.
About that, it doesn't make sense to me.
What?
Miss Mailer, the thing is, when I saw that letter, all the pages were full of writing, so you know.
Objection!
Hold it, witness. You saw the contents of Sir Belduke's letter? I didn't read it. It's just that, you see? Witness, this is an important matter. You'll need to testify about it. Tell us what you know about this letter. That night, probably about 1 a.m., I made a delivery to Sir Belduke. He was writing a letter at the time. It'll be ready pretty soon, so come pick it up tomorrow morning. That's what he said. I left his study and wished the butler a good night, then I went home. I went there again the next morning, as promised. Sir Belduke was... Well, anyway, I looked for the letter. Then, that guy went out like a light on the couch. I got a little scared, so I left as soon as I found the letter. I see. So you witnessed the victim write the letter? I wouldn't say witness. That sounds so legal. I saw sheets of parchment were on his desks, though. I saw that. And they were covered in writing, margin to margin. But you don't know what the letter was about. Telling you would be a breach of our privacy policy. I can't reveal its contents or who it was addressed to. Of course, I understand. Frankly, I didn't get close enough to Sir Belduke's desk, so I couldn't make out what he was writing. In any case, where did you find the letter the morning after the victim was found dead? On his shelf, next to his desk, in a small letterbox.
Ah, yes.
Yes, right there, next to his head. I was a teeny little bit scared, though, coming so close to a dead man. So that's where she took the letter from, huh? It's right next to the corpse.
Now that the circumstances are clear, we shall proceed with the cross-examination.
Hold it!
Wait a minute. When you say butler, you mean... Miss Grey Earl, of course. She was in the corridor carrying a tray.
Hang on!
Miss Grey Earl, I'd like to ask you something. Oh, certainly. What is it? You stated previously that you excused yourself and left Sir Belduke's study shortly after 1 a.m. Yes, that is correct. However, according to Miss Mailer's testimony, the two of you came across each other while you were waiting outside that room. Why didn't you mention that until now? That's because... I apologize. I'm afraid I completely forgot to mention it.
You forgot?
Miss Mailer very often comes with deliveries during the night. I did see her that night as well, but I didn't think much of it, as it is nothing unusual. I had no reason to hide that from you. Please forgive me for the confusion.
Well, that kind of thing can happen. Human memory is in no way perfect. I don't imagine there's a problem here, is there?
On the contrary, Your Honor. There's one more thing Miss Grey Earl forgot to mention.
What is it?
I'd like you to recall what Miss Mailer said about having met Miss Grey Earl that night. Miss Grey Earl, of course, she was in the corridor carrying a tray. Well, Miss Grey Earl? Apparently you were carrying a tray at the time. What do you have to say about that?
Jean Grey Earl, I believe you should add that to your testimony.
As you wish, my lord. It's unlikely she really forgot about it. The fact that she tried to hide it must mean it means something.
Hold it!
What do you mean by usual drink? When Master experiments continued into late hours, he would always have some juice to ward off sleepiness. What kind of juice? Tomato juice.
Hang on!
Excuse me, Mr. Mister.
Bah! I know nothing about it. Nothing at all. Witness, what have you done this time? Don't give me that scary look, Inquisitor Barnum. I was only just a little bit. Seriously, hardly anything at all.
What are you talking about?
Huh? Well, what do you think I'm talking about? The juice. The tomato juice, of course.
The tomato juice?
Oh, you didn't. Surely even you wouldn't. Well, like I told you before, I think I sort of overdid it the previous night. When I woke up, my head was pounding. That's why I went to see the alchemist. But you know what happened? When I was left alone in the alchemist's study, I kind of caught me eye. The bottle, I mean. The tomato juice. I thought it might make the headache go away, you know? So you drank it? The juice found at the crime scene? Well, why shouldn't I? It's a drink, ain't it? What else do you do with a drink? You drink it, right?
And can you tell us where the bottle is now? Come to think of it, I don't remember seeing it at the crime scene. It has been confiscated. Confiscated? As I mentioned previously, the occult crime analysis confiscated all of the master's personal belongings from the crime scene.
Is that so? Well, I believe we should take note of the bottle and add it to the court record. Yeah, so there I was, having a bit of juice when the girl came around. To tell you the truth, I don't quite remember what happened after that.
That's when he passed out, huh?
Hold it!
He went out like a light. He was helping me look for the letter, and then it happened, out of the blue. He just passed out, the rascal. He collapsed, and his eyes rolled back, and he wouldn't move. It almost sounds like he died. No such luck, unfortunately. That horrible sound. He was grating his teeth. I thought my ears would explode.
Yep, not sure what came over me. Never happened to me before, sleeping like that. You know, I didn't just fall asleep. More like I sort of blacked out, I guess. No idea why. Oh, you guys, what do you think? Any ideas?
I think it bears no relevance, and there you have my honest answer. And I think it's good that I wasn't there. But the question is, why did he black out like that? Your Honor, I might have a clue as to why the witness suddenly lost consciousness.
You do? Really? Did you work it out, Bluey?
If that's the case, may the defense present some evidence. Which piece of evidence shows why this man fell unconscious?
Take that!
Mister, I believe the reason you might have lost consciousness at the crime scene is tied to a certain piece of evidence.
But wasn't it just because, you know, I had a bit too much fun the night before?
No, it was because of this.
The tomato juice?
You passed out right after drinking this juice. Therefore, it's not unreasonable to assume that there's a direct connection between the two.
Tomato juice does not make people fall unconscious, Sir Blue Knight.
Exactly. That's why something must have been added to the contents of the bottle. Something like a soporific.
You mean sleep medicine?
And if a soporific was mixed in with the tomato juice, that means Sir Belduke would have been unconscious at the time he was assailed. Oh! Let us sketch. Have another look. The red liquid trickling down from the victim's mouth. Is proof that Sir Belduke must have drank the tomato juice. I had failed to consider this. Inquisitor Barnum, I bet you remember saying to this court, can you imagine anyone sitting back and letting themselves be strangled? Clearly there should be evidence of a struggle. And since we haven't found any, that must mean the killer erased all traces of a fight from the crime scene. However, if the victim was unconscious when his assailant was strangling him, then the killer could have committed the crime through a small portal big enough to put their arms through, after all.
Objection!
That may be so, but tell me this. How would the culprit have managed to obtain such a strong soporific? It was very simple, and I think you've just realized why. From the alchemist. That's right. The alchemist would no doubt have a wide array of various medicaments in their possession, and an apprentice would have little trouble stealing some of it from their study. Isn't that right, Miss Grey Earl? How should I respond to that? I'm sorry to disappoint you, may perhaps be the best way to put it. What do you mean? Even though that juice bottle has been safely stored for the past 3 months, I'm positive it would be impossible to find any soporific now. You wicked. This is unbelievable. Was it really the butler who did it? But everything she says holds true. She was pretending to be a boy. That's mighty suspicious to begin with. Is she a witch? Hold on, everyone. The butler couldn't have done that to Sir Belduke. She would never do it. Please, let us testify just one more time. Miss Grey Earl, let's tell them. Let's prove they're wrong. They have no idea how much you've done to Sir Belduke. Miss Mailer. Very well, I shall grant your request. Testify about the relationship between Miss Grey Earl and Sir Belduke. Master took me in, a complete stranger. I will forever be indebted to him. That's why I could never make an attempt on his life, through magic or otherwise. Sir Belduke was a wonderful man. He was the one who recommended this line of work for me. And he's the one who told me about it, and the confidentially obligation, I've never once broken it. It's true that Sir Belduke evoked fear due to his being an alchemist. However, he was also a man of admirable character, who supported the townsfolk through his research. Why would anyone want to kill such a man? This question keeps haunting me, however much I think about it. Witches need no reason behind their evil. That's what makes them witches. Now, the defense may begin its interrogation.
Hold it!
You're claiming you had no reason to kill Sir Belduke. Yes, and you can ask whomever you wish, and I'm sure they'll say the same. That is so. It is widely known that Jean Grey Earl was devoted to serving Sir Belduke. It's difficult to imagine that she could brutally murder her respected master. Indeed, I have the same opinion. I have visited Sir Belduke on several occasions to inquire about this piece of evidence or that, and I must say I felt there was a strong bond of trust between him and Miss Grey Earl. Do you still think you can come up with a motive? A motive? Jean Grey Earl's motive for murder. Grey Earl risked a lot to conjure up a small portal in the wall. And then she killed Belduke. But what motive did she have? I understand. The defense will present evidence. Evidence to indicate Jean Grey Earl's motive to murder? No. Wait, what? What is this about, Sir Blue Knight? Sir Belduke's life was taken that day, that's a fact. However, was this actually the culprit's true objective?
Objection!
What? This is nonsense. Sir Belduke was murdered. What other possible reason could there be besides someone wanting him dead? I'm fairly positive this piece of evidence will lead us to the culprit's real motive. Very well, defense, present evidence to indicate Jean Grail's motive for committing the crime.
Take that!
Miss Grail had no reason to want to kill Sir Belduke. However, there was another incident that night which is related to this case. And I have an idea what it was. Another incident? I'm referring to this letter. Sir Belduke wrote a letter shortly before his death, yet all we have here are some blank sheets of parchment. Fascinating. Are you saying maybe a witch used some kind of ink-removing magic on that letter, Mr. Wright? No, the spell used by the witch was, of course, Godor. Let's go over the state of the crime scene one more time. As we know from Miss Mailer's testimony, the letter was in a letterbox next to the victim's head. Ah, yes, it's in the sketch as well. The letterbox is on the far side of the shelf. The point of the note is the location. The point of note is the location of that letterbox. Unbelievable. As Inquisitor Barnum seems to have noticed, the letterbox is within reach of the small portal conjured by the witch behind the painting on the wall. Oh, indeed it is. And as Sir Belduke's butler, you would have known exactly where he keeps his letters. Indeed, Master Belduke would always keep his letters in that letterbox before posting them. You mentioned no such thing. Miss Grail, you created a portal with Godor, not with the intention of killing Sir Belduke. You were after this letter, weren't you? That's merely a wild conjecture. I didn't even know about the letter at the time. You didn't? Now that's very strange. When Miss Mailer came by that night, Sir Belduke was busy writing that letter. And that's when you entered, carrying a bottle of tomato juice. Oh! There's no way you wouldn't have known that your master was writing a letter to someone. And you could have known even more than that. Ugh, sorry. For instance, perhaps you knew what he was writing about. That's enough! I served Master Belduke as his butler. I never would have pried into his private affairs. Whatever it was he wrote about in his final letter to the storyteller, it is no concern of mine. Your Honor. Yes, defense? I'd like Miss Grayer's last statement to be added to her testimony. Any objections requested upon him? No, my lord. Very well, witness. Include what you have just told us in your testimony. As you wish, my lord.
Hold it!
Let me get this straight. You didn't know anything about the victim's letter. That's right. I believe I said as much already. Then how did you know? How did you know that it was addressed to the storyteller? Ah, indeed. Why don't you answer his question, witness? It's true that this letter is addressed to the storyteller. But when did you find out about it? I've spoken about the murder with many people over the past 3 months.
Hang on!
Excuse me, Miss Mailer. Oh! Thought I caught her off guard, but it's her screech that caught me off guard. Is there perhaps anything you'd like to add to Miss Grayerl's testimony? No, not really. In that case, let me ask you a different question. Did you tell Miss Grayerl about Sir Belduke's letter? I dunno.
Do not beat around the bush, witness. Answer the question.
If I may briefly interrupt. I am testifying right now. If you wish to question Miss Mailer, please do so once you have finished interrogating me. She's not going to let me question Mailer, from the looks of it, and if she's so keen to prevent her from answering, this might be a critical point in the testimony. I've got to find another way for fishing for that information.
Witness, continue testifying.
Hold it!
Alright, it's gonna be the same until she blurts out.
Witness!
Everyone has been very kind to me. They've also told me all sorts of things. I must have heard about it from someone at some point.
Well, that incident was certainly much talked about. Would you not agree, defense?
Does her testimony hold together? There's a huge contradiction in Mr. Grayerl's testimony.
You're becoming very predictable, Sir Blue Knight.
If there is a contradiction, I hope you have the evidence to prove it. Here's my chance. There's only one way to expose this contradiction. The defense has no intention of presenting evidence.
What?
The proof that there is a contradiction cannot be found in the court record. What? What is the meaning of this, Mr. Wright? The professor pointed it out to me in the previous witch trial. In this court, an attorney's arsenal isn't limited to the court record. Each of the witnesses in this trial are given their own account of what occurred. Therefore, whenever one witness has testified, the other remaining witnesses have listened. Should one witness's testimony differ from the other's testimony, then I suppose that in itself can also be considered a contradiction, can it not? Juxtaposing contradictory testimonies from different witnesses is the key. Miss Grayerl, your testimony contradicts another one that we've heard in this court today.
Objection!
You can see Luke down there turning the professor. That was pretty funny. It was a single word that gave you away, Miss Grayerl. What do you mean by that? The name of the recipient. There were only a few people who knew the intended recipient of that letter. 4 people, to be precise.
Only 4 people?
First was Sir Belduke, the author of the letter, then there was Miss Mailer, who delivered it. And of course, the storyteller, its recipient, as well as one more person. The one who stole the letter using a portal spell and swapped it with the blank sheets of parchment. The witch. Maybe. Maybe I did. Maybe I spilled the beans about the letter, I mean. Maybe I told the butler.
You did what?
Well, because, you see, me and the butler are sort of friends. And it was about our dear Sir Belduke. I feel like I may have told her about it after all. See? If I did, that's how she knew. About the recipient, I mean.
Objection!
We're heading into the home stretch. I understand that you're friends with Miss Grayerl and want to help her out. But I've got a piece of evidence, Miss Mailer, that you shouldn't lie, even for a friend. Huh? remember your testimony. You told us about the courier's duty to keep the letters of the details of the letter confidential. And you have also testified that you have never broken that obligation. Remember? Yeah.
Objection!
But hold on just a minute. As the victim's butler, Jean Greer may have had a chance to catch a glimpse of that envelope.
Objection!
No, she didn't. When Miss Mailer came with the delivery, Sir Belduke was still writing that letter. In fact, he was in the middle of it. At that time, the letter had not been addressed yet. And the next morning, when the body was discovered, the letter was already in the letterbox. Keep in mind that Miss Greer would have had no opportunity to see it then either. Is that so? She went to report the crime without even setting foot in the study. And then Miss Mailer appeared and retrieved the letter. Needless to say, Miss Greer couldn't have learned of the letter's recipient afterwards. Or maybe you have a very good explanation, Miss Greer? I'd very much like to hear one. Can you please tell the court how you found out the recipient's name? Mr. Wright. Yes? Do you remember what I said when I was called to the witness stand? Yes. At the heart of alchemy lies the pursuit of rules and logic that govern nature. You have demonstrated the power of your own logic. Miss Greer. Are you saying... Yes, I confess. The abhorrent witch who used the spell Godor to swap the contents of that letter, and who took the life of Master Belduke, it was none other than I. Dun dun dun! I was only a child, born to a poor family. I've been a witch since I was very little. When did I become aware of it? I don't remember. Although I was but a young child, I knew that being a witch was a crime. That's why I hid my witch's scepter and wouldn't use magic at all. My father worked as a bricklayer. He toiled every day, but we could hardly make ends meet. One winter's day, we couldn't afford to pay the rent, and we were going to lose the house. My mother was in tears, and my father was sitting with his head down, wordless.
I want money for Mummy and Daddy.
That day, I suddenly remembered about the witch's scepter that I had hidden. The Goldor spell. I thought I'd try it just once, casting the spell. But at that time, I had no idea what an irreversible mistake that would be. Even though no one told me, I knew from the very beginning what magic I was able to use. She was the one who turned the gold into gold. What should I turn into gold? I was thinking about it really hard, the little girl that I was. Something that wouldn't stand out, that could be taken for a work of art. Then I decided. I chose a pretty leaf that had fallen into our garden.
Golda!
But it wasn't the right thing to do after all. I was terribly punished for using magic, even just the once. Punished? In what way were you punished? I placed the leaf down in the back garden and cast the spell, but then Margaret suddenly walked in front of me. Margaret? My closest childhood friend. Margaret, right before my eyes, she was turned into gold. Oh, dear me. I screamed and cried, but I knew I couldn't ask anyone for help. If anyone had seen it, they would have known that it was a work of magic, and I knew Margaret wasn't coming back. That's terrible. Then my mother and father's faces flashed before my eyes. We may have been very poor, but we were always happy together. Had I been captured as a witch, I feared my parents probably wouldn't be safe either. That thought tormented me more than anything, and so I made the decision. I decided to end my own life. threw myself into the river near the town. It was winter and the water was cold as ice. I couldn't even move. It was painful. My consciousness started drifting away. The next thing I knew, I was in Master Belduke's residence. He risked his own life jumping into the river and saved me. I burst into tears and told him everything. I didn't want to go back home. I would only end up causing my parents grief. Master Belduke listened to me without interrupting, and then he told me this.
You can stay here, but from now on, you must live as a boy.
Master Belduke met with my parents and explained everything to them. They were very sad, but they agreed it would be best if I didn't return home. Poor Miss Grey Earl, that must have been so awful for her. Master bought the house for my parents, so they wouldn't have to worry about paying rent anymore. As for Margaret, turned into gold, he bought her to his residence. He knew that if anyone saw her, they would report an incident of witchcraft. And this Miss Margaret, is she still in that golden state? Yes, she is. That's strange. We've received no reports of anyone by that name having gone missing. Margaret is being kept in the basement under Master's study. The basement? Correct me if I'm wrong, but this Margaret, is she, Yes, my dear friend was a goat that we were keeping at our house. Goat? Until then, Mr. Belduke had been mainly researching medicine. But since the incident with Margaret, he became known as an alchemist. So that's when he became an alchemist. I was wondering why the goat was the only thing not covered in dust. That's how I started my new life as Master Belduke's butler. Sir Belduke would sometimes work as a physician, curing the townspeople of their illnesses. As his assistant, you have also shown commitment to helping the townspeople through your work. I forgot about being a witch and was able to live happily at peace with everyone. I thought I could stay like that forever. But those peaceful days came to an abrupt end. Tell us, what in the world was the cause? Even I am not quite sure what led to this. However, it all started 3 months ago with that lightning strike. Master Belduke and I were on our way back home carrying specimens for experiments. An old bell tower appeared in the flames. Everyone who saw it was stupefied. But the expression on Master Belduke's face was unlike anything I'd seen before. What do you mean? His face went pale and twisted in sheer terror. He was shaking violently. It wasn't just astonishment at an unusual phenomenon. It seemed as if he were afraid of something more concrete. Perhaps Sir Belduke saw something that others couldn't. He canceled his experiments for that night and began writing a letter to someone. A letter? I found out about it when I brought him his bottle of tomato juice. He was writing feverishly as if he were possessed. I saw some things. A few words in that letter. Expose everything. Cannot keep this secret any longer. The truth about the witch. Master Belduke was going to confess that I was a witch. Everything went black in front of my eyes. I will never forget the feeling that overwhelmed me at that moment. Is that when you decided to commit the crime? What I did first was accidentally singe a part of the wall in my room. It was an excuse to repaint that section of the wall green. Then you also painted the wall behind that painting in Sir Belduke's study. And when that fateful night came, I used a syringe to inject a soporific through the cork and into the bottle of the tomato juice. So many thoughts were running through my head as I wished Master a good night. I opened the portal behind him. He was right there in front of me, asleep. I reached for the letter in the letterbox, taking care not to wake him. And then I happened to notice the name on the envelope. Storyteller. When I read that name, the world all around me turned black once more. It's impossible to avoid what is written by the storyteller. It seemed as if I could hear the doors to all escape groups shutting closed. It was the sound of despair. I would like you to believe me, that the thought of taking Master Belduke's life never once occurred to me. I only planned to steal that letter and then disappear. But as I looked upon Master sleeping there in front of me, at that moment I felt an evil presence awaken within me. Why did he save my life? And why did he betray me? Before I realized what I was doing, my hands were clutching his neck. He didn't move at all, so I kept on clutching his neck. That's it. That's the truth about what happened 3 months ago. There is just one thing I fail to understand. Yes? You said you wanted to run away once you had stolen the letter. Yet despite that, you continued to live in Sir Belduke's residence, and now here you stand. Why did you not run away? My life had been thrown into disarray due to the absurdity of magic. I had learned all about alchemy living at Master's residence. Alchemy is concerned with the logic that governs the world. I wanted to believe that there was truly such a thing. So I stayed in that place, hoping to one day see the irrational nature of magic overcome by the power of reason. Magic being overcome by reason. That night, I swapped the letter with the blank sheets of parchment and waited for the sun to rise. I resolved to wait for the day when my true identity could be exposed through reason and logic. Master's death remained a mystery for 3 months, and people started to lose interest. And then you appeared, Mr. Wright. On the day you visited the residence, I was listening to your conversation from the other room. Has the time finally come for me? My heart was racing with anticipation. Then, a few minutes after everyone entered that room, an unbelievable incident took place. That incident. A witch appeared in Master's study. What? I wanted to get a look at the witch, so I created a portal in the wall behind the painting. Precisely at that moment, Goldor. The witch used one of the very spells that I can use too. When I heard those words, a single thought flashed through my mind. This was my chance. I could dispose of my witch's scepter. I knew at the time what kind of witch the Inquisition would be looking for. A witch that can use Familia and Goldor. It occurred to me that I only needed to change one of the magic gems. I had previously found out the Familia gem was purple. I realized that if I swapped the Goldor gem for my amethyst, I could pin the blame for my crime on that other witch. So you changed one of the gems and threw the witch's scepter into that room, is that correct? Exactly.
Objection!
Wait a minute, Jean Grail. This statement of yours is highly problematic. How so, Inquisitor Barnum? Yes, you're right. Can someone explain to me what this is about? I am a witch indeed. A sinful creature that killed the person to whom she owed her life. However, regarding that gentleman standing next to you, Mr. Wright, he may have fallen victim to a witch, but that witch was not me. Oh. Wait, what? Alright, so with that twist of the narrative, I think I'm going to end it here. Hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit into the next chapter, since this one's clearly wrapping up. But there's still a little more to go in this case, so we will wrap this up on Friday. and hope you'll join us then. And we have more of the inner world, the last Wind Monk tomorrow, and more stuff for the rest of the week. Hopefully we get through Wario Land 4 on Tuesday, then we have Final Fantasy 15 on Wednesday, and we also have the newer game Paranorma Site, which is a lot of fun if you like spooky stuff. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Later.